All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little San Francisco Giant video. We haven't done a Giant video in a while, but today they named a brand new general manager, and we will discuss it next. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera, and we will be there on Sunday from noon until 6 for our Krug Show meet and greet. So join us at Pig and a Pickle in Corte Madera on Sunday. And thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, they're at 205 Cypress Avenue. Pacific Grove, California is where they're at, along the Monterey Peninsula. So if you have sports cards and collectible needs, call my friend Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. Well, we've been speculating for the last few days that Buster Posey most likely had named his general manager and was just waiting for the World Series to end, because MLB's got a little bit of a moratorium on baseball decisions of note being announced during the Fall Classic. And sure enough, that was the case. The World Series has ended, and the Giants have named Zack Minasian as their new general manager. And interesting hire. Bob Nightingale reported it first. Him and John Heyman had the news. Zack's brother is Perry Minasian, and he is the Angels general manager, hired in 2020. So together, they become the first brother combo to be Major League Baseball GMs at the same time in history. Now, you say, well, what's their background? Their dad, Zack Sr., was a clubhouse manager of the Texas Rangers. So these guys were in baseball clubhouses, Zack and Perry and their other brother, since they were little kids. In fact, Zack's middle name, it's Zack Thomas Minasian, and that's Thomas is for Tommy Lasorda. That's right. Zack's dad and Lasorda were best friends, and so the Giants' new manager's middle name is named after Tommy Lasorda, the longtime Dodger manager. But, an interesting hire. He replaces Farhan Zaidi as the Giants actually he replaces Pete Petulia. Farhan Zaidi was the Giants president of baseball operations. Buster Posey became the new president of baseball operations, replacing Farhan. This is Buster's first major decision as the Giants' new baseball ops head. And so the Giants move on from Pete Petulia, who had been the Giants general manager since 2022. And interestingly enough, Minasian spent 14 seasons in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. He joined the Giants in 2019, hired by Farhan. He was elevated to the position of vice president in charge of pro scouting in 2022. And he becomes the 11th general manager in San Francisco Giants history. So the Giants are looking to turn it around. They went 80-82 last year. They missed the playoffs for the third straight season. And they've only got one playoff appearance in the past 8 seasons. It was 2021 when they went 107-55. But, the Giants are trying to recreate what they had there from 2010 through 2014. The Giants won 3 World Series titles in 5 years with Brian Sabean and Bruce Bochy running the show. So now Minasian comes in, and, it's an interesting hire. Why? Because the Giants go internal, the same way that they hired internally for the pitching coach when they named J.P. Martinez the pitching coach. They go internal for this hire as well. And this is a big, big decision. So it's kind of like a statement from Buster that, you know what? They don't want to break it all down and start totally from the bottom. They want to, continue some of the momentum that Farhan and Pete Petulia had established here. And then, so they don't want to start from the bottom. They want to start and have some, capitalize on some of the momentum. When you hire somebody completely from outside the organization, you're going to start totally fresh. There's going to be new scouting director, new farm director, new scouts, a complete, autopsy of the organization. And I kind of suspected that wasn't what the Giants really needed, just because they have gotten their minor league system going to some degree. What they needed is a likable, credible face at the top and somebody who was going to try something different than what Farhan had done. Now, Farhan did a nice job, as I said, kind of jump-starting the minor leagues, and you're starting to see the benefits of that. But the major league level has been a wasteland. There have been no creative trades. Farhan was terrible at sales. He always overpromised and underdelivered. He talked up every free agent marketplace like the Giants were going to be big players, and then they got shut out. He talked up every trade deadline like they were going to make big moves, and they didn't. So, really Farhan was fired because he had one good year. He had the one 2021 year where they won 107 games. Other than that, he's been 500 or beneath every year. And they need a new face. They need somebody, a new vision, a new buck stops with this guy a vision. And it's Buster at the top of the masthead. And now it's Zack Minasian, Perry's younger brother, to be the general manager. And he's an internal hire. So they're not going to start from the bottom. They're not going to fire everybody. They're going to retain a lot of the same people that they have. And they're just going to try to make better decisions at the major league level while their prospects percolate through the system. Now, Zack Minasian has some big decisions on his plate this offseason. Blake Snell's got a player option. Does he opt in? Does he opt out? If he opts out, do the Giants go after him and sign him to a big money deal? That's one of the questions. I think he would like to be on the West Coast, but who knows? What do you do with Michael Conforto? What do you do with Thairo Estrada? The major free agents this offseason are Juan Soto and Pete Alonso as far as hitters. You got to get one of those guys. You got to get either Pete Alonso or Juan Soto. You got to get a middle of the order presence of note. The Dodgers just won the World Series. Their first, second, and third place hitters are all future Hall of Famers. So the time for screwing around has ended. The time for dabbling with Slaters and Yazes and these, Wades and these. Come on. I mean, it's time to get serious about contending at the major league level with some big time players. You're not winning. You're not beating the Dodgers and beating the Yankees and beating the Orioles and beating the Braves and all these teams that are so well run and have such deep farm systems with Mike Yastrzemski in a corner outfield spot. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry for you Giants fans who love Yastrzemski as the mascot. That you're not winning. You're not going to win that way. So go throw big money at Juan Soto. Go throw big money at Pete Alonso. If you can't get one of those big hitters, maybe you might have to make a trade. But there's also Corbin Burns, who was a Bay Area guy who went to St. Mary's in Moraga. Attract Corbin Burns to come back here. Max Fried is a Southern California kid from the OC, I believe. He's pitching in Atlanta. Maybe get a guy like Max Fried to come back to California. What I do know about Zack Minasian is he has a scouting background. He was the Brewers scouting director at the age of 27. And he's been involved in a number of free agent pursuits and a number of big deals. While he was there in Milwaukee, they, acquired CC Sabathia in a trade. They acquired Zach Greinke in a trade. They picked up Carlos Gomez, and other guys, Josh Hader, Corey Knebel, Gene Segura, Will Smith. So, you don't make trades without a good farm system. The Giants really need to, there's multiple ways to acquire players. You can trade for them. You can sign them. You can sign them as international free agents. Of course, you can always check the waiver wire. But the Giants need some creative trades. The Giants have huge amounts of money. They need to go spend that money. It's bad enough that the Dodgers create more revenue, but it's inexcusable that the Giants allow the Dodgers to spend a higher percentage of their revenue than the Giants do. The Giants spend roughly 45% of their revenue on player payroll. The Dodgers are spending 53% of their bigger payroll or their bigger revenue stream on player payroll. You can't compete with LA if you're not going to commit to spending the way they spend. They have more revenue. You can't control that. But you can control what percentage of your revenue you devote to player payroll. And the Giants need to spend a little bit more money at the major league level. Ultimately, they need to draft better. They need to make better, more creative trades. They need to to build up this lineup. This is a boring baseball team with no stars and no athleticism. Very little power, very little speed. Elliot Ramos is a good building block. They've got some more coming. Eldridge is going to be their first baseman of the future. I think Luis Matos is a nice player. They signed, Matt Chapman to an extension so that when they go into the free agent market, they'll have protection in the lineup for some of these hitters. I mean, I think that was also a major problem of Farhan's. All this talk about how San Francisco is a dangerous place and all that, that's a bunch of backfired garbage. The reality is most of these guys didn't sign here, not because they're afraid of walking down the streets of San Francisco. They're afraid of being naked in the Giants lineup with Mike Yastrzemski hitting behind them. They need more offense. They signed Matt Chapman. That's a start, but they got to go get Pete Alonso. Go get the polar bear. Go be the high bidder for Juan Soto. And if you can't get those guys, maybe you do it with pitching and you go after Burns or a Fried, or you make a trade. Make some creative trades. I mean, there are guys that are beneath the radar that could step in and help this team dramatically. Anyway, this is the first step, and I think we're starting to get an indication of how Buster's thinking. Is it a tear it down to the studs and build it back up game plan? No. Is it Farhan and Pete did nothing and we have to rip everything, to absolutely nothing and start fresh? No. They did some good things, especially in the minor leagues and the development side. Continue those things. Make creative deals at the major league level. Make the kinds of acquisitions that excite your fans. Put butts in the seats. And really re-engage the Giant audience. The Giants fan base is massive. Massive. It's a huge fan base. The Giants are one of the most popular teams in all of baseball. You can see it when they go out on the road. The Giants draw well out on the road. Why? Because they're an iconic franchise. They've won 3 titles recently. So right now, they can't run with LA. And that's unacceptable. Unacceptable. The Giants are too rich of a franchise, too solid on too solid of a ground financially by owning their own ballpark to ever accept being a forever, taking a forever backseat to the Dodgers. That is not acceptable. Giants fans deserve better. Giants fans expect better. And hopefully Buster Posey with Zack Minasian running the show will deliver better than the last regime did. All right. Overall, I would say it's a good hire. It's a baseball guy with credentials. It's a baseball family. It's a guy who's a lifer. It's a guy who did a lot of good things in Milwaukee. And now let's see if he can do those good things here in San Francisco. Once again, for the Giants to annually finish behind the Dodgers in the National League West with the financial advantages that the Giants have over so many teams in the game is unacceptable. And hopefully this is the first step in turning that thing around. All right, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.